Now, let's break this down. Statistically, the average American household is $240,000 in debt. Number one, Americans are $11 trillion in consumer debt. Now, that's not your house. I'm talking about consumer debt. When we say consumer debt, we're talking about revolving debt. $11 trillion. $11 trillion. We're going to talk about why in a second, because it's emotional. You were trained from elementary school, a lot of times through high school and through college, even if it was by your parents who did it unknowingly, you were trained that if you don't have it, you just float it. And then you just pay the money back. And then if you don't have it, you just float it. And then you just pay the money back. And then if you don't have it, you just float it. And then you just pay the money back. The problem with that is it's only a matter of time before you're unable to pay the money back. Then half the time you're spending money on a credit card on things that aren't worth anything. So the money that you put on a credit card plus the interest, what you bought, number one, you don't even remember. And number two, it's not even worth what it was when you bought it. That leads to financial ruin. So let me make sure I say this again. If you bought something on a credit card, 9 times out of 10, you don't remember what you bought. That's number one. Number two, what you bought was not an asset. It depreciated the minute you bought it. Number three, there's interest on things that are depreciating. So you are bleeding 19%, 18%, 14% off your credit card. And then your checking account and savings account are 1%. Inflation is 4%. So what that means is this: your checking account is really -3 because inflation is 4%. That's the cost of living going up every single day. And your interest rate is 1%. So you're -3 on what you think are your assets. And then you're actually 21% if your credit card rate is 17%. See, inflation works against you on interest. So you think you owe 17%, but because the cost of living is going up and your income is going down, it's going to take you a lot longer to pay back something you don't even remember. That's how they got you. They got you when you were young, and they figure out how to take advantage of your lack of knowledge. No more. We're going to fix all of that tonight. That I can promise you. Okay. I do this for a living. I talk about this all day, every day till I'm blue in the face. And you can tell I'm passionate about it because it's just a matter of you understanding how the system actually works, and you'll stop letting people take advantage of you. So number one, American households are $240,000 in debt on average. Right. Number two, Americans are $11 trillion in consumer debt. Number three, U.S. debt has increased by 700% since 1971. 700%. Let me keep going, man, because we're going to talk more about solutions tonight than problems. Number four, 43% of all Americans spend more than they make. I actually thought it was more than that. Okay, 43% of all Americans spend more than they make. Number five, 76% of all Americans live check to check. I actually thought it was more than that. Number six, 75% of all Americans do not have 6 months saved. Let me correct this real quick. It's not 60, it's 6. 75% of all Americans do not have 6 months saved. Now, here's the scary thing about that statistic. How long have you been working? Now, I want you to write that down. How long have you been working? A lot of us are over the age of 18. You may be 23, you may be 45, you may be 56. But most of us watching this webinar tonight, since you know we're talking about money, are over the age of 18. The question becomes, how long have you been working? So if you've been working for at least 10 years and you don't have 6 months saved up, you've been capitalized on. See, you can talk to me all you want and say in your mind, not me, he's not talking to me, this can't be right, I'm fine financially. That might be true, but here's the question. Do you have what you should have for the number of years you've been working? Do you have what you should have? So what that means is there's a lot more that you should know. Now, I'm gonna break this down even further. We're not just gonna rattle off a bunch of statistics. I don't even like statistics because they can be skewed depending on who the person is trying to give you the stat. But 27% of all Americans have zero saved. 27% have zero saved. Now here's the question. If there are 300 million people in America, half of 300 million is 150 million. So half of that is 75 million. There's 75 million people in the wealthiest country in the world that have zero savings. Why is that? Because the banks and the government capitalize on your ignorance. I want you guys to really think about this for a minute. How is America the wealthiest country in the world and so many people are struggling?